When I was 13 years old, basking in the warm sunshine of the Allahabad winter, I noticed my dad going off to work. And I was on holiday. The cane chair was comfortable, my muscles relaxed into kind of happy complacency. But when I saw him leaving one morning, I pulled myself up, waddled over to my father, and asked him where he was off to that day. Training, he said. What for? I asked. And his reply stayed with me, even though I did not appreciate his words that day. You don't train an army during war, he said. You train an army before war so that they are always ready when a conflict breaks out. Years later, I moved to China to head the self-medication business and noticed that our training budget was zero, a nice round zero. And overriding the unspoken howls of protest from my sales and marketing team, I cut their sales and marketing budgets and diverted that money into a budget for training. And I set up a proper training program and protocol for the entire organization. And when I returned to India, now I put on a lot of weight in China. When I returned to India, my wife forced me into a gym. And I groaned when I watched the muscle bunnies admiring their popping biceps in the mirror. Everyone had matchstick legs. And they all reminded me of the Roman soldiers in the Asterix comics. And if you have not read the original Asterix comics, pause this podcast, go out and buy the complete set of the original comics and read them. Muscle memory, my gym trainer used to keep saying, muscle memory, muscle memory, muscle memory. And ever since then, I associated the term muscle memory with bulging biceps. And only years later, did I realize that the term also relates to our mental processes as well. Now, when you start to learn a new skill, stretching in yoga, for instance, or badminton, you start with slow, deliberate moves and steps. Slow, repetitive steps are essential to ensure that the process seeps into your memory and that your posture and movements are correct. When you learn a new skill, especially if you do it deliberately, your brain's prefrontal cortex wakes up and you remember the steps. With constant repetition of these steps, a process called myelation kicks in, where the insulating sheaths in your nervous system makes the transmission of information faster and you acquire expertise. When learning is conscious and deliberate, you learn better and you do not forget what you have learned. When you cram stuff for an exam, you stuff data into your brain, vomit out the data onto the exam paper, and your brain empties itself, waiting for the next stimulus, which is the next exam, which may be, the exam, and it could also be an Instagram reel or whatever. Fast learning, quick fixes do not enhance learning. While the term may have originated in the world of physical activity, we must realize that we are a continuous whole. Our brain, nerves, muscles, they all interact and work together. We are not silos. We are not like the silo structure that you find in corporate organizations. Corporations have this habit of sending people off to training programs, especially those set in exotic locations, and we call them off-site programs. We've all attended them, and we've come back elated, and we promise everyone and ourselves that we are going to implement these lessons that we learned in our daily lives. But soon enough, the glow fades, the memory of targets looms up again, and we forget. So unless you use what you have learned and applied, you will forget it. You will forget everything. Organizations spend a lot of money on these outcomes, on these programs with low impact. And there's almost no personal risk for an employee who attends these programs. They get paid for their salaries, the company pays for their time, their travel and boarding expenses, etc., etc., etc. So what happens when you invest your time and your money to attend a course? Does the muscle memory of your blase corporate habit inhibit you from learning? Do you attend classes, take notes, study your camera, and go out and practice your craft? Or do you just attend classes, take notes, and then forget about everything that you've learned because you don't have the time or don't want to take the time to go and learn? Now, a few episodes back, I spoke about how I'd spend Sundays taking photographs. Then during the week, I'd travel 90 minutes downtown one way to give my film for processing. And a few days later, I traveled downtown again to pick up the contact sheets and study them under the beautiful light given by a magnifying glass. And in the first year, I produced some really awful photographs. I produced some of the world's worst photographs. And then I signed up for a crash course and kept taking photos. After about a few years of taking horrible photographs, some of the secrets of photography began to imprint themselves on my reluctant brain, and my work improved. When I joined my MBA college, I lobbied for and became the head of the darkroom. And I went through the same learning process, learning how to load film into the developing tank, developing the film, drying the film, printing the images, and studying the relationship between light, chemistry, and paper, and discovering the true magic of photography in the process. And I used to spend the entire night, sometimes a couple of nights in a week, just developing and printing images. Now, if you put in the time, discarding the stupid errors and retaining the lessons from your successes, your prefrontal cortex and the myelation process will kick in. A bodybuilder who stops building muscles, a cricketer who stops playing cricket, will lose their skills in very short time. And muscle memory fades and only the vestiges remain. Writing, painting, photography, business skills are not like a physical skill, and you can continue doing all this stuff right through until the end of your life. It's one way of staying young. As long as you keep yourself physically fit, you can keep writing, taking photographs, painting, etc., etc., etc. Your brain's muscle memory will remain active. I'm going to end with another true story. A few years back, I interviewed a young graduate from my engineering college, and he studied metallurgy as I did. He was a class topper with exceptional grades in a subject called heat treatment. I asked him to draw the iron-carbon phase diagram, which is a fundamental diagram for metallurgists. And I was absolutely shocked when he said that he had no clue how to draw the diagram or analyze key aspects of the chart. And I drew the diagram for him. I asked him to explain what happens when you cool a molten alloy or a molten alloy of iron and carbon. And he had absolutely no clue. And I said, young fellow, I studied this 30 years ago. He said, sir, but I studied this 3 years ago. And I said, if I can remember it after 30 years, why can't you remember it after 3 years? He had no answer. But the other professors thought he was a brilliant chap and gave him admission. So he had crammed the subject, vomited data onto his answer sheet, without understanding the subject or learning it, and so he forgot. So if you want to learn, you need to understand what you're doing. You need to understand the process, and you have to build your muscle memory. Take the time to learn. Take the time to learn deliberately. Build your muscle memory and keep the myelation process alive and well. So, again, goodbye for now. Rajiv Chopra from the Dusty Mike Chronicles saying, see you next time. Goodbye. And before I go, yes, do shove in a comment, share the podcast, share the publication, subscribe, and spread the word. See you next time. Ciao.